Um, Good evening and welcome to the City Council meeting for Tuesday, May 18th, 2021. Let the roll call reflect that all council members are present with the exception of Councilmember Nadolski and Vice Chair White, who have both asked to be excused this evening. First up, we will go ahead and begin with a Pledge of Allegiance. And we have asked Councilmember Heyer to lead us in that Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Chair Blair. It is my honor to do so. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. And if you would mute your mic so we don't get a lot of feedback. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Heyer. Now we would ask those on the council and all those who are joining us to join in with us in observing a moment of silence. Thank you. First on our agenda tonight are some items listed under common consent. We have the fiscal year 2021 budget amendment, the use of fund balance for CIP projects, fiscal year 2021 budget amendment, the river restoration grants, the fiscal year 2021 budget amendments, the airport CIP projects, and the fiscal year 2021 through 2025 capital improvement plan amendments. And on each of these, we are setting the public hearing for June 1st, 2021.
Chair Blair, may I just make a comment that I will recuse myself from this item due to the item for the CIP plan. There's a Dumpke Arts Plaza item under that option. And so I'd like to recuse myself from that.
Great, thank you.
Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the common consent agenda by setting the public hearing for June 1st on all four items.
I second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Heyer to approve the items listed under common consent and set the public hearing for June 1st, 2021. And the second by Councilmember Lopez. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Thank you. Next up, we had the honorary street name designation, but there has been a development in that, and so we'll have Glenn Symes, the senior policy analyst, go ahead and explain that and the next steps for that item.
Great, thank you, Chair. As you mentioned, the honorary street name proposal was on the agenda for a public hearing and for council consideration. However, in the process of providing notice for this public hearing, there was one element of the noticing requirement that was not done. And so we talked to legal about that to get advice on the best way to move forward. Their suggestion was to have the council table this for a week to allow that last part of noticing to take place. So that's what we're requesting the council do, is just table this for 1 week to May 25th. There won't be a presentation this evening, and public hearing, public input will not be accepted in the item. That will all take place next week, again on May 25th. So we understand that there may be some folks who had planned to be here for that who may not be able to be here next week. So I did want to repeat a couple of the options if people did want to provide comments who plan to do that tonight who may not be able to next week. We do have a telephone line where people can leave a message for the council, and that number is 801-629-8158. They can also go to ogdencity.com/input, and there's a comment submission form there, or they can send an email to citycouncil@ogdencity.com. So any of those options, someone can provide comments, which will be sent, of course, to the council for your consideration. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. If not, we are requesting that the council table this item to May 25th.
Thank you, Glenn.
Chair, if there are no questions, I'll be happy to make a motion to move this item, table this item for May 25th. next
Second.
week.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Lopez to go ahead and table this public hearing for the honorary street name designation to next Tuesday, and the second by Councilmember Heyer. I believe this is a voice vote.
It is.
Okay, this is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Great. So we'll go ahead and look forward to having that on the agenda for next week. Thank you for that. Next up, we have some new business, the fiscal year 2022 tentative budget. And tonight we have Janine Eller-Smith here to present that.
You're muted, Janine.
Thank you, Chair Blair.
Yes.
Let me share my screen here. Okay, everybody can see that all right?
Yes.
Okay. So tonight, we are by state law required to adopt a tentative budget. I was just thinking to myself, I'm not sure exactly why, but we are required to. And so the things that we first start out with, we do a couple of things prior to the budget, which I just wanted to review for you and for anyone that might be listening. We have a set of financial principles that are adopted prior to the budget. These are basic financial principles that cover revenue estimates, having a balanced budget, which we are required to have, investments, fund balance, operating reserves. All of these things are sort of accounting principles that the city, the council and mayor have adopted jointly as a way to manage the city's funds. The second item that the council adopts, well, there's actually two, goals and guidelines. They're separated, and we'll be talking a little bit more about those in just a few minutes. But basically, they establish goals for the upcoming budget. They might set policy regarding tax rates, and they also establish some priorities for spending. So one of your goals or guidelines is that you'll review the property tax rate and consider a tax increase on odd years. So this year, there's no property tax increase proposed by the mayor, and so we will not be doing a truth in taxation process. So the mayor's proposed in his budget and considering for adoption in the tentative budget. These are sort of the priority, as all of the directors that you've heard for so far have stressed the importance of this employee compensation plan implementation. You already adopted that phase one in this current year by giving everyone a step increase, which was not included in the 21 budget because of the unknowns of COVID. So that was added back in for this current year. Other key things are the replacement of those items that were eliminated in 2021. Those are primarily the travel and education budgets. Those have all been proposed to be included in the 22. Their fleet replacement overall has gone up for many of the departments, and the reason is now we're having better equipment, we have newer equipment, and that costs just a little bit more. It's been a long time since I worked for the administration, but I worked in fleet and facilities many years ago, and they were chronically underfunded for many, many years. And so I think it's to the administration's credit and to your credit for authorizing funding in past years that now they're getting to a level where they have some good equipment that the departments can operate. One other item that's interesting is that the city is moving to a self-insurance model for their health insurance. And so there are some costs, additional costs associated with that, which the city will be picking up. The goal for the city is to kind of build up a fund balance so that when, and also to purchase additional insurance to cover those really, really high claims that might come in. So that will be, we'll get more information on this when we have management services talk with us. The CIP process and funding, as you know, you adopted in January a new process, and so you're considering the CIP along with the new CIP along with the funding for the CIP, and that's why we've asked the directors to talk about their CIP projects in their presentations. There are 5 new positions that are proposed. Tom talked a little bit about his economic development administrator. There's also a new position in the comptrollers provided for another accountant. This is to cover sort of in the ERP system. There's a new module for asset management, and they're just finding that they just really need someone full-time to kind of monitor all those. There's a new IT tech, IT support specialist, and then administrative assistant, and then a maintenance tech in fleet and facilities. This is one of those things that came out of the management study that we did a few years ago, was to increase the number of maintenance technicians for the city. So this is a summary of overall for the general fund, comparing revenues from over 21, so 22 over 21 and the change. So you'll see this big jump in sales tax. That's because there was a significant cut in sales tax in 20, because that was all the direction that the financial experts were giving, that sales tax was going to go on, and I guess fortunately that didn't occur. So that's why there's that significant increase over 21. You see some other increases over, and so generally in the general fund, there's about a 12% increase. Most of that, can relate to the sales tax. Here's just year-over-year budget comparisons for some of the major funds. You can see a huge increase in the airport. That's because of all of the state and federal funds that have come. The administration did a great job in getting some state money to come to the Ogden Airport. And then with the new airline means that we'll be able to get more funding because of that. Let's see if there's anything significant in the CIP. That's a huge jump. That's because if you recall, in 21, they didn't really spend any money on CIP projects, and which is the same reason why you see the huge increase in BDO lease revenues, or BDO fund, is because being conservative, they just did the bare minimum in CIP and did the bare minimum in BDO, and so now they're feeling a lot more comfortable in recommending expending those funds. So overall, there's a 16% increase over year, again, just because 21 was such an odd year and they were so conservative in their estimates. So you recall that the council had adopted a 5-year strategic plan. I just wanted to remind you the primary directive from that plan. Leverage our unique location, outdoor recreation, diverse population, and rich history to offer residents, businesses, and guests a vibrant community that leads people to call home. And I think this meshes, perfectly with what CED and the RDA goals, to just really make this place a great place for people to be. So out of those in that strategic plan, the community identified 4 strategic initiatives that they would like the city to focus on: economic development, community safety, recreation, and city image and reputation. But then the council did ask that we continue with the goal and of fiscal sustainability and transparency. As you know, as the council, the budget is the city's primary policy document, and it's the document that you are responsible for, your most important thing that you do every year. So I just wanted to review some of the things in the strategic plan, and some of this budget, the 22 proposed budget, tentative budget, fulfills some of those goals. So you already identified in your goals and guidelines budget priority for economic development as Quality Neighborhoods Initiative. So there is the $1 million funding for that in this. There's also, the bus rapid transit system. There's a budget for $3 million. Some of that is coming from other funds outside the agency, but it is included in the budget. I've checked kind of all of those additional goals that were identified in economic development in the strategic plan. And I think that in most of you can see that this budget addresses almost all of those budget goals. For community safety, your budget priority was fire and police salaries. So I've mentioned the implementation of the new compensation and benefit plan. For police and fire, that covers $1.6 million. So that's a significant investment. And then also that new ladder truck that the chief was talking about, another $1.6 million. We haven't talked about police yet. We'll be doing that next week, but there's funding in there for a lot of good things that will cover these community safety things, emergency preparedness. You've heard from the fire department, and school safety with our crossing guards and things like that. There's more to come on that. The recreation, you've chose as a budget priority youth recreation, and so there's a significant amount of investment going into the courts that are at the parks, the playgrounds, general park improvements, trails, all of those things that can benefit our young people here. And the additional budget goals, adult recreation, a lot of those things that I just mentioned also benefit the adults in the community. Arts and cultural events, I think Christy and her team are killing it in this regard. We're finally being able to have back up the downtown events. Event participation's been great. So lots of good things happening there. For the city image and reputation, you identified budget priorities, Marshall White Center, and authorized the $1 million, which is included in this. And then you can see $13 million in capital projects that are going to really make a difference throughout the city. And then for fiscal sustainability and transparency, you identified the budget priority as the city employees and essential services. And I just wanted to point out that to implement the new compensation plan for the entire city is close to $6 million. It's a big, that includes public safety. So it's a big investment in what you have often talked about as the biggest asset that the city has, and that's the employees. Sometimes I've heard comments from the public that, when you just give the police officers an extra $1 or $2 an hour, but there's a lot of, when you increase somebody's salary, that it doesn't just cost whatever you're increasing their salary. There's a lot of other costs that go on top of that. their retirement and workers' comp and all of those things. So I think it's a great investment in the employees. We talked a little bit about the capital improvement plan and the ordinance changes. I've just kind of summarized that here. And so I think this has been different this year. Not sure if we like it or not from a staff perspective, but we're going to stick with it for a couple of years and see if it makes sense. There's pros and cons certainly for doing it this way. Normally, we might have a Schedule A that's attached to the tentative budget. This might be what we call friendly amendments. Maybe the comptrollers found an error in the initial proposed budget, and so they'd like to change that. Right now, there are no recommended changes to the tentative budget, but the council will be able to direct additional changes in the Schedule A1 to the ordinance when you adopt that. You still have plenty of opportunity to make changes to the budget. So this is the timeline. The mayor proposed the budget on May 4th. We're in this process of reviewing the budget with you, having the directors come in and talk with you. And then on June 1st, we'll be adopting the tentative budget. June 8th, we'll be adopting considering the final RDA and MBA budgets. And then we've left some time open for some sort of town hall. If you decide you want to do something, that's a tentative thing. In the past, we have done sort of a Facebook Live event, but we've been Facebook Living for a year and a half now. So I don't know if that's something that you want to continue. So we can talk about that before we get closer to that, as we get closer to that date. And then finally, we are scheduled for final consideration of the budget on June 22nd. So with that is the tentative budget, just a quick review. And if there's not any questions, that's our recommendation that you go ahead and set the public hearing for June 1st.
Thank you, Janine. Are there any questions for Janine or? If not, I would entertain a motion to set the public hearing.
Sure,
Set the public hearing.
go ahead. Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Lopez to set the public hearing on the fiscal year 2022 tentative budget for June 1st, 2021, and a second by Councilmember Chaburka. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Thank you. Next up is public comments. This is an opportunity to address the council regarding concerns or ideas on any topic. Let's have, I believe we have Eric here tonight. Yep. Eric, if you could go ahead and just give a brief explanation on how that would work, and then we'll go ahead and accept public comment.
Thanks, Chair. It's actually Brandon, but that's fine. Not a problem at all. Yeah, if you are joining us via Zoom, you can participate in public comments. Again, you have to be joining us via Zoom to do that and using the raise hand feature, which is found at the bottom of your application. And then Chair Blair will call on you and we'll go from there.
Great, thank you. Okay. We have one hand raised so far. Heath Sato, go ahead. The time is now yours.
Hey there, Heath Sato, Ogden resident. Last week, only 2 people made comments to the council, myself and one other person. I asked a couple of simple questions and the entire council that was present and the administration acted as if I hadn't even spoken. I find that to be impolite at best. I know that council members Chaburka, Nadolski, and Lopez have tried unsuccessfully to get answers to my specific questions. The 3 at-large positions held by council members Lopez, White, and Blair are representatives of everyone in Ogden, as I understand it, and neither council members Blair nor White have even acknowledged that these questions have been asked. So I'm very frustrated, to say the least. I've sent the same 2 emails in multiple emails, and they've all been entirely ignored. So let me ask your advice tonight. How do I get these answers? And will somebody please acknowledge these questions are being asked and that they may be addressed at some point and not just ignored like so many others are? Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. That's what I wanted. Okay, I don't see any other hands raised. Seeing no other public comment, we'll go ahead and move to comments from the mayor or administration.
Nothing to add at this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And comments from council members.
Chair, I'd just like to make a comment to Mr. Sato that last week, I apologize, wasn't able to be at the work session when the CIP process was discussed. And so I'll follow up with you about your question about us handing over power, or, I don't want to not say it verbatim, but I'll definitely follow up with him about that.
Thank you.
Chair, just a comment concerning our budget process as it has been refined and streamlined. And, when I was a new council member, it was very daunting and onerous. And in recent years, the changes that Director Eller-Smith has put forward has really made this nice, and I very much appreciate it. The department directors are hitting the nail on the head when they come to us, and it's really helping. I appreciate that. Just want to say that.
I would second that. I agree. When I first got on here, the budget process was, was always said that was like drinking out of a fire hose. But I appreciate the council staff for continuing to look at ways to refine that process and improve that process. And I agree. It's taken huge steps forward, and it's much more manageable and much more. It's a much better process for sure. So I echo your comments.
Chair?
Yes.
Would anyone be able or willing to? I wasn't here last week, and I was just curious. I don't know if Councilmember Chaverka or someone might be able to maybe let me know what those questions that Heath asked were. And if not, if nobody wants to comment, I can make a phone call after the meeting. No problem.
Yeah, I apologize. I don't remember them by heart right at this moment, but there was one about the CIP process, and then another follow-up about the RDA process. So I don't remember the question specifically.
Okay, I will either go back and review the videos or I will make a phone call. I appreciate it.
There should be an email in your inbox. If you just searched for Heath's email, it's probably in there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's one of those that I manage 4 email accounts, and there are like dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of emails. So, okay. I'll look for it. Thank you, council member. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Chair?
Yes.
I do have a question. I noticed on our on one of the news stations that they showed 2nd and Washington Boulevard that there was some flooding with that rainstorm we had. Did we have any damage in the city along those lines?
Not that I have not heard of any. I don't know if the administration wants to comment on that. I haven't heard of any. I don't know.
Councilman Stevens, I'll jump in on that. We did not have any. It brought to light a lot of the issues we have with a lot of the ditch companies and everything else in terms of how we need to keep them clean and how the community used to come together and needs to come together to keep some of those clean. We did not have any of that. I can guarantee you that the city's perspective, we had a whole bunch of emails that went back and forth today. We're keeping our parts of that clean, but with those ditch companies, some of them go through a lot of private property that we don't have access to. And that's an educational opportunity for us to bring to people to say, hey, you can't dump all of your grass clippings and branches and everything else into the ditch and hope that it's just going to go down the line and disappear, because it all clogs up somewhere else. So that's something we've been talking about at length today, because we did see that, and we have a great group of public works people that made sure and guaranteed that we're taken care of. But it's a public education process for a lot of those ditches that we're needing to engage in.
I appreciate that, Mayor. I have a member of a ditch company over here on the north side of the river, and I understand what you're saying, and it is our responsibility as ditch members of that ditch company to take care of our ditches, and I understand that. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
Chair?
Yes.
So I like to make a couple comments. So let's see. So I would like to ask to find out. So I actually was able to very quickly locate the email from Heath, and what I like to say about it is that I'm not going to, at this point, personally rehash too much of the past, because unfortunately I don't have those answers. If Heath is interested in continuing to try to get answers to those questions, I think he may need to try to talk to the administration about that. But what I am interested about is knowing more about the future. And so we've had a couple of discussions or comments here from some council members expressing interest in taking a look at the process for selecting developers. And I would like to ask if either someone from our council staff or from the administration is interested or prepared to give us an update about that. I would really appreciate it. And if they're not tonight, then I'll be happy to ask maybe next week. But I am very interested in looking into that and into speaking about it in our public meetings. I think that's what these meetings are for. And so I would really appreciate it if someone has an update about that. That would be great.
Okay. Thanks for your comments, or thank you.
So Chair Blair, I can respond to Councilmember Lopez if
That's
you'd like.
great. Thank you.
So we have met with the administration on that issue, and we're actually scheduled, that's on a list of topics we're going to discuss with the mayor and the CAO next week. And it just so happens that you are on that meeting. So hopefully I'll remind you so that you don't forget to dial in, and we'll have that discussion then. So we do have some ideas, but we haven't nailed anything down, but we are working on it, and appreciate some of the input that we received from CED folks and from Mark Johnson. And so we'll just keep working on that until we get a more firm proposal to bring to the council.
I really appreciate the update, Janine. Thank you so much.
Okay. Any other comments? If not, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
Nobody wants to go. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Heyer to adjourn this meeting and a second by Councilmember Chaburka. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. So go out and enjoy the sunlight.
Stay safe.
Yep. Thanks.